some great guests coming up in the future. If you have someone in your sphere, or perhaps you have something in mind that we could, you know, uh, have in this kind of format, please reach out to me. We have some other opportunities beyond this Zoom where we're looking to continue to build communities. So I would encourage you to reach out and reach myself. And, uh, I think as I was thinking about myself and my own writing, and I hope that we're all doing that in this new season, in this new year, and I'm like, God, how use me? I mean, how am I being used, and how are my words being used? And today is we celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday. It's not actually today, but it's the federal holiday. And I spent the time. I have the original recording on LP, and so I listened to the entire day. And a lot of us only hear snippets, right? We hear even that great speech, we hear snippets of it, and we don't get the full breadth of it. And it's like somebody taking one of your works and pulling out one or two paragraphs, and you're like, well, what about the rest of it? And and in spending time with this today, it helped me realize that as a nation, that it was a shift in time. We were headed one direction, and then we began heading in another direction. And it was August 28th, 1963. And there's songs, there's other words, and yes, the entire mall was filled with people. But there was one quote from Dr. King that really cut to my heart. And he said this. He said, "There's something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to denigrate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force." Now, when you listen to the entire speech, though it changed the course of a nation, and there's been other times, Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and Ronald Reagan, people who have spoken, and then things have changed. But when those words of meeting physical force with soul force really hit me hard today. And it's not a political speech, but it's one full of scripture and of hope. And an entire nation was moved. And ultimately, blessed are the peacemakers. And so I'm praying that God raises up peacemakers in our nation today. But I'm praying for this group, these people tonight, that among us we will be known as peacemakers. And we can achieve God's justice, God's righteousness with words. And we are the people that God has given that gift. And I just hope that really sears your heart tonight, that your words can make a difference, and that it'll be the soul force that our nation needs. So with that, it's sobering, and yet it's a message of hope and encouragement. And no matter how you're feeling today, I think we're all feeling disquieted. We need to rise up and put hand to pen, hand to keyboard, and say, God, how can I be a peacemaker today? And I just pray that will happen. So I look forward to those good things. When I've known Susan for a few years now, and she she and I bumped in a bookstore of all places a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, actually now. And she was going in there to do a book signing. I'm like, well, how's COVID treating you um, and your audience and your people? And she said, I got to tell you that it's been the best time of all for me. She said, this has been an incredible year because I have finally found my people. And she has been finding traction with a tribe, with building up people who will not only engage with her, but that will actually be moved by her words and can react to them and can not just be fans, but can be participants in her writing. And we all know that when somebody participates in our writing, it helps us write more, right? And I thought, what better time of finding a tribe in the middle of isolation? Uh, don't give up. And Susan's going to really speak to us tonight. And so I'm going to give her the floor. She does have some obligations later. She has to get to the airport, but I know that she'll also have some time for some questions. So get ready for those and any other feedback you want to give. So Susan, I'll give you the time right now. Susan Mathis.
All right. Well, thank you, David. Thank you for that MLK little talk, because that is so good. We need that so much. Yes, for those who don't know me, I write historical fiction in Gilded Age in the Thousand Islands. And if you don't know where the Thousand Islands is, it's between upstate New York and Ontario, Canada. There are 1,800 islands, and half of them are in New York and half of them are in Ontario. And they're during the Gilded Age. The turn of the century, all the rich and famous people bought up islands and parts of islands and built castles and mansions and beautiful summer homes that are still there today. Some of them you can tour and some of them you can stay in. I stayed in several. I've stayed in all of the ones that I've written about so far. And so I grew up in that area. So I got to know people in the Thousand Islands. Got to know, as I was writing the different books, I got to know the owners of the islands and the castles and the mansions and everything. I'll just show you real quick what I have and just show you how I got to know people. So I really didn't start writing historical fiction. I have another dozen or more nonfiction books, and I was never going to write fiction, but my husband challenged me to do that, and I started writing. This was my first book, and it's called The Fabric of Hope, and it's about my ancestors who came over from Ireland, and they settled on Wolf Island, which is the largest of the Thousand Islands. Well, after I wrote that, I got hooked. It was so much fun to write. And so I wrote a Christmas novella that year, which was about one of the characters in the book. And that was about Wolf Island. And then she emigrated to Cape Vincent, New York. And that's also a tourist town. So then I was more hooked and I decided to write Caitlin's Choice. And this is about Pullman Island. And George Pullman, of the Pullman Railroad car fame, he built a castle, and he had President Grant and Generals Sheridan and Sherman come to the island. And so this book is all about that. And I'm really blessed because all of my books have won awards so far. And so that's really a fun affirmation that I'm on the right track. I got to get to know the family that owns Pullman Island. Back when I was writing my first book, I met cousins that I didn't even know existed. I brought my 93-year-old mother to the island, and we met these cousins and stuff I never knew I had. And so then after writing this and getting to know the owners, I wrote this, which is one of the characters in Caitlin's Choice. And so I got to know more people in Alex Bay, which is another tourist town in the area. So I kept meeting all these people that are part of that world. And so then I got really brave and I wrote Devon's Dilemma, and that's about Singer Castle. And you can go and tour Singer Castle. It's still there. It has all the period pieces in there. Frederick Bourne, who was the president of Singer Sewing Machine Company, he had J.P. Morgan and Vanderbilt and all these people up to his castle over the summer. So I talk about all that in this book. And then last but not least, Reagan's Reward is about Casablanca, and I got to stay there twice. And that house has like 28 rooms, and it was a really fun story as well. And so I got to be friends with all of the people that own these islands and these castles and mansions. In the process, it became like this web of getting to know all these people. I did book signings, of course, and stuff. But one of the things that I did, let me back up a minute before I start talking about the how-tos. About 5 or 6 years ago, the whole thing was, get your platform, find your platform, have your platform, and have your fans and have your followers. And I struggled with that. It was like platform, this is a pain. I don't really want to get out there and, and be some famous person that speaks, I just want to serve God. I just want to do what he wants me to do. And a lot of us as writers are introverts. We don't like to do that. How many can raise their hand and say, yeah, right, exactly. And then the whole followers things. Well, are we in high school? We used to have cliques and gangs and stuff in high school, and we had followers, right? Do we really want to have followers? No, not really. Do we want to have fans? Are we Celine Dion? Really, do we want to have fans? No, we don't. What we want to have is relationships, right? Isn't that what God made us for? We made us for relationships, not fans and followers and platforms and all that jazzy stuff like that. We want to have people. We want to build community. We want to build a community of faithful readers who will just love our work so much that they'll pass it on and pass it on and pass it on. And in the process, give God glory in it. That's what I wanted to do. And when I finally figured that out about a year and a half ago, I was like, forget this whole platform, followers, fans, and all this stuff. I just want to serve God. I just want people to read my books and be blessed by them, right? That's what I was created for, and that's what I finally figured out. It took me a while, but I finally figured that out. And so we have all these different ways of meeting people, right? We have, we meet people in person. We have family and friends that we have in person. We have colleagues. We have neighbors. We have peers. We have author friends. And then there's the whole social media that's blowing up before our very eyes. So we have lots of ways to meet people. But how do you meet people that are going to be interested in the work that you do? That's a whole nother ballgame, right? You write certain things. Some people wouldn't care for historical fiction for anything. They want to read sci-fi or whatever. And so how do you meet those people? And so that was a real question that I had. Now, all of you probably write different genres, different areas, and that kind of thing. So you'll have to apply what I'm saying to your genre. But first of all, we have to be intentional, okay? In John, he talks about one plants, another waters, and another reaps the harvest, right? Well, as authors, a lot of times we will plant by writing. That will be our planting. We'll plant our words in a book, and we'll hope that maybe something will come out. Somebody will be blessed by it. I was the editorial director at Focus on the Family for 12 years, and I had 12 different publications under me. And I never knew if my hundreds and hundreds of articles ever touched anybody unless they happened to write. And that was very, very seldom. And so I just had to give that to God and say, okay, whatever you have, whoever you're touching, great. Well, same with writing a book. You can tell a little bit by sales, but that's not really telling if their hearts are changed, if their hearts are touched, that kind of thing. So I just kind of keep that before me, that I am just planting a seed, and somebody else might water it. A pastor might have a discussion with somebody and then they remember something that's written in my book and blah blah blah, right? So we have to hold those things loosely. We can't have fans and stuff that that we expect that they're going to send us fan mail. That happens now and then, and I've had that happen, but that's rare, especially today. So we want to be intentional about what we do. Do we want to be famous? Nah, if that's your goal, you're never going to be satisfied. We see people who want to be famous all the time, and where do they end up? It's not a pretty place usually. All we want to do is make a difference in people's lives and plant what God wants us to plant, and nothing more, nothing less, just be there and be available. So that is my goal as far as writing. So how do we connect with people, right? That is the big question in today's world. For me, I found my tribe, my friends, my community on Facebook groups. It was really funny because there's a couple of big Facebook groups that love the Thousand Islands. One of them is called the Thousand Island River Rats. Long story, but that's what they call themselves. And there's over 24,000 people on that, and it's a very busy group. So I started with that, and then there's a couple other ones that I'm on. And so I just started liking pictures, liking comments. Sometimes there'd be a historical something, and I'd make a comment. People would post pictures of Singer Castle or Pullman Island or Casablanca or whatever. And I'd say, oh, by the way, I wrote a book, a historical fiction about Singer Castle. And people are like, wow, that's cool. And then they'd start this huge, I've had 400 or 500 people respond and ask for the book and stuff. It is amazing how much stuff. So last week I'm now writing a book that's in oh boy, Calumet Island, which there's castle there, and it was one of the most famous castles in the area. It burned down in 1957. So I just finished chapter 8, but I started writing questions there. So last week I wrote a question, and I just said, the Calumet Castle veranda stretched across the front of the castle. What did they see while sitting there one evening? I got dozens and dozens of answers, the beautiful sparkling water and, all this stuff. But one of the cool things is the two people that their grandparents owned the island together connected and said, oh, my grandparents own the island. And the other one said, oh, my grandparents bought the island with your grandfather. They didn't even know each other. And all of a sudden they're connected. And so the lady, she said, she messaged me. She said, I have a story to tell you, and here's my telephone number. So I talked to her this weekend. And then she told me about another person, and she called me. And she told me another story. And so I have all these, I've got like 8 or 10 little scenes and vignettes that I'm putting into my story. I started that last year with Devon's Dilemma when I did Singer Castle. I would say, oh, the family was in the dining room having dinner, and what happened? And they went nuts. It was so cool. And so I used a bunch of their little stories in my book. I mean, I've sent I've sent cases and cases of books to people, to stores in the area and stuff. It is beyond my wildest dream. So how do you transfer that to your stuff? That's to your writing and what you're doing. I'm sure there's lots of ways to do that, but mainly it's to build relationship. It all comes back to relationships. I became friends with the president of the Historical Association for the Thousand Islands, and she became my historical editor. And I spent 3 days with her stayed at her house last year, and we just became fast friends. And I have a free editor who knows every detail. When I had Devon taking a left-hand turn when she should have been taking a right-hand turn, Judy told me. So again, it's a relationship that I built, and it's now a dear, dear friend, a lifelong friend, and somebody that is my advocate and my helper. So you just never know. And what I've what I've found is that you have to, when you connect with a group that you're just starting to get to know and finding your community, ask lots of questions of them. Make sure that you like or comment or any of those kind of things on their posts. I have a 5-to-1 ratio. So I'll do 5 comments or likes or whatever to any comment I make about myself or my work. And that for me works pretty good. I just kind of make sure that I'm not always promoting my stuff and always talking about my stuff, because I want to build relationship most importantly. Word of mouth works once you find your community. When like back to the river rats again, I'll just make a comment. Somebody posted something about Casablanca, just posted a picture. We took the boat tour across, and we saw Casablanca as this beautiful house. And I just made a comment. Oh, if you're interested, I have a book that tells some of the stories in it. And there were like 200 people saying, oh, you got to read this book. You got to read this book. You got to get this book. And that's all I did. I just made one tiny comment and said, I love the picture, whatever. So that's the kind of thing that you want to do. You want to build that relationship, and people just come out of the woodwork to affirm you, to start becoming your fans. And so now, when I was writing Reagan's Reward, I had met several people that have read all my books. And so I asked them to be part of my launch team. They and that they would write reviews and all that kind of stuff. They are the most faithful of all my launch team. They're in there, and they were the first ones to write reviews. They're on there probably once or twice a week making comments about my books. And it's really no work because it was building relationship. Another thing that was really cool. In August, I went to the Thousand Islands during COVID, and I did a book signing. We didn't know if anyone would show up. It was at the Cornwall Museum, which is the historical museum there. We didn't know if anybody would show up. There was a limit of 50 people could come because it wasn't the largest venue in the world. So 50 people came and we started turning away people. And they turned away a few dozen people. But during that, those people came in later. They bought up all the books. I had to send 3 cases more of books. They were gone within the month. I had to send another case. I was finally like, oh my goodness. Well, I'm not a book distributor, people. But in that process, 3 people came to me and said, 2 of them said they had come to the Lord because of my stories. And the other one said they had come back to the Lord because of my stories. I mean, that undid me because I don't give the gospel message in my book. None of my books tell a gospel message. There's no one that really is converted or whatever. They are changed by the Lord in some form or fashion. So you just don't know. And it's back to the John thing. You plant something, and a lot of times you don't know the harvest. But the Lord was just gracious to show me, with at least with 3 people, that the harvest is ripe. And the harvest is ripe. On back to the river rats, some of those people can be very vulgar. They're not believers, but they're reading my book. So, hey, whatever, right? God is good. So just some tips on where to find your readers, how to find your readers, that kind of thing. Well, you know this, but you defined your writing, your genre, your age, comparable books. You do that anyway as you're building your marketing plan. Define your reader. Think of one reader in your life that would love your book, your genre, the age, the stage, the interests, their location, whatever, and have that person in mind. And then go on and start searching, whether it's Twitter. Now, Twitter, you can find, like, I could find the Thousand Islands quite easily by the hashtags. On Facebook, for me, that works best for me. I like Facebook best at the moment. You never know, it might be done in another month, who knows. But you find what's going to work for you. Don't try to do it all. One thing I tried to do is I tried to do it all a couple years ago, and it about killed me. You can't be on 5, 6, 7, 8 different social media platforms. Pick 2 or 3 that you're most comfortable with and stick with that. Now, with with Facebook and all that's happening with Facebook and Twitter, people are fleeing that, and they were going to Parler, and now Parler shut down. There's MeWe, and there's another dozen or so social media platforms that are popping up like crazy. But who knows what's going to work? Who knows where people are going to flee to? Who knows what your audience is? So just work with what you have, where you are at the moment, and God will take care of that as well. I was stressing when Parler went down. I was like, oh my goodness, I was going to go to that. I had that on my calendar to sign up for Parler this week, and then it goes down, right? So we can't depend on that. Saying that, one of the things you want to do is build your email list through your newsletter. Those are critical things. Those are the only things that you can control. You can't control social media. That can go, as we've seen, that can go down in a day. But they can't control your email list. So work on that, people. That's one thing. I just work on that. Get every name you can get, because the Thousand Island river rats may go down. If Facebook goes down, I've lost 20 some thousand people. I'm trying to gain their names and capture their emails and with their permission and stuff. And people are very willing if you ask them, generally. So I have them go over and sign up for my newsletter and that, and most people do. So those are just some things that for me works. Yeah, you want to ask some questions? I'm just I'm kind of all over the place tonight. Sorry. I've got a new little puppy and she kept me from sleeping last night. But yeah, what kind of questions do you have? And I'm sure some of the things I missed will come up in those questions.
I don't mind kicking it off.
Sure.
So, you know, I think too many of us, when you ask, who are you writing for?
Mhm.
We're like, you know, I want to write for the whole world because
Yeah,
the whole world needs my message. And like, well, can you narrow that down? All right. Well, non-Christians.
right.
Okay. All right. Or women, you know, middle-aged women, you know, and
Right.
you know, and I like what you said about like finding one reader and just really
Yeah.
answering that question.
Yeah.
And you have written about a very narrow place with a very narrow audience,
Yeah.
and yet you sell books everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's something to be said about that is if you have a single person in mind when you're writing,
Yeah.
and and you have that person, you have a name for them
Mhm.
and an age
Yeah.
and their background and their living situation and what kind of struggles they have, and really put yourself in that body, then you're able to be a much better writer. Would you agree with that, Susan?
Absolutely. Yes. When I finally figured that out, and that, I was very wide and broad at first. It was everybody that likes historical fiction. And then I narrowed it down to everybody that likes Gilded Age historical fiction. And then I narrowed it down to, but then I found one of my high school friends who owns a cottage in the Thousand Islands. And she grew up Catholic, but she's not really a believer. And she kind of is floating, and you can tell by the Facebook posts and stuff like that. She was my one person that I thought she's the person. And so I wrote with her in mind. She's read all my books. She loves my books. She's sent them on to her cousins and her sister and her she actually for Christmas bought 18 of my books to give for Christmas presents. She was and I didn't know if she would even read one of my books. But I mean, it's just, it works if you have that one person in mind and you pour out your heart to that one person, like you were writing for that one lost soul or lonely soul or hurting soul, whatever your point is. And it just is amazing. Find that, pinpoint that name, put their name down, give them eye color and hair color, just like you're building to pour out my heart. Oh my. that was definitely a journey, but a very good journey. And people were blessed by it. So yeah. Good point, Dee Dee. Yeah. Other questions, thoughts,
I
ideas?
need myself to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Susan, I have a question.
Yeah.
And that is, if we cannot necessarily rely on, Facebook anymore, that was the way that was very popular to get people to sign up for your newsletter
Mhm.
was through like a Facebook event of some sort.
Right.
So do you have any suggestions for now if we are not going to be able to depend on, any of the social media to be there and be stable enough to draw people there,
Mhm.
how else we can reach people to sign up for our newsletter lists?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Maybe we can feed off each other about that idea. That's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, social media it's a scary world because it could all go down tomorrow and then we're sunk.
I
Um,
I have a suggestion.
yes.
I work for Cross River Media Publishing, and one of the things that we're going to start doing is having our authors really supporting each other, like through their guest posts and things like that, and guest blogs
Yes.
that we'll be able to share. Like there's 3 of us that wrote about, parenting. And so we did a 45-minute video of 3 of us having a conversation basically about motherhood that will air in May.
Yeah.
So things like that, just asking. I've got another lady that does marriage, and so we're connecting the 2 marriage ladies together so that they can support each other and share each other's audience that way too.
Right. Right. Oh yeah. You definitely need to have, this, you already know, you need to have a website, you need to have a blog, you need to have a newsletter, and you need to grow your email list. As you're launching your books, make sure that you have a blog tour and capture names. I do that all the time. I usually have 30 to 50 blogs that I'm guests on during my tour for each of the books I launch, so that I can capture names, so that I can capture new readers. One of the things that is easy to happen is that we can all know each other as authors, and then we not grow past that. So if our only audience is other authors, then we're kind of sunk, right? We want to have readers that are outside of the craft and stuff. So yeah, we have to get out there. A lot of times I have a blog for authors. If you've published a book and stuff and you'd like to be on my blog, I'd love to have you. And that's what I do. I just get I feature authors so that my readers can get to know other authors that are like-minded. And so, yeah, and I know Donna has a blog as well. And so I'm sure several of you do. So yeah, we have to, iron sharpens iron, and we help each other out, and we try to grow that way.
And by 60, I guess, with the feet. Like, come on, Jess.
I was gonna pop in and I can't be seen because I'm driving, so that would be a bad idea right now. I apologize, and maybe this will be an idea. I do think something I've done recently is, because we hit a certain number, we've started applying for some literary awards, which is giving me an opportunity. Like, I'm leaving a radio interview right now, and pitching to podcast. But I think you've got to be specific. If you want to capture that email, then you need to have something that you're offering that audience. Yes. That would be a benefit for them. In fact, I did not do that tonight. I realized I did not say, and I may follow up with them, visit my blog and you can see the first 7 days of this book for free. And that is capturing some emails. And then I think sometimes linking with something bigger that you can contribute. Ultimate Bundles is about to do a Christian living. And I did offer a course that I created that I normally charge for. I gave them a free coupon code for that. And I pulled 300 emails in less than 3 months. I thought that was a pretty good, investment for that, especially in the middle of COVID when you're not speaking and doing things like that. And I apologize about the road noise. I bet I have some here. But I think the other thing I love that was said is, I do think we've got to quit seeing each other as competition. I wrote a book for tween girls. Parents buy more than one book for their kids. I'm really partnering with other children's book authors, parenting authors and things like that. And I think sharing our audiences needs to be part of that kingdom practice. And I co-author books. I even like to write with other people. And, you know, we've been more successful sharing our platforms together and expanding our reach.
Yeah.
And I just think there's a lot we can do. I think we got to think beyond, like, so what am I going to offer somebody who would want to join my email list besides a prayer newsletter? You know, I think we've got to be thinking about, what are we going to offer them? Are we going to offer them the top 5 podcasts we listened to this week that we learned on the same content that we're writing about and they're interested in, or something like that? I think giving them some value is super helpful. I know right now I'm leading a online course for women on leadership. And that's given me some additional reach and email addresses that I hadn't done before. And I'm willing to be on online, even though it's hard to do a lot of them, but to do online events and partner with other people, I think is super helpful. So I think especially if you're new and maybe you're not getting a lot of invites, ask people, you know, how could I contribute?
Right.
And I think that's really important as well, to do that. So I think that I just met a woman who I had a blog sign up about in Dallas this week. She's a Hope writer, and she saw that post and she said, I don't have a blog, but I have a podcast. You want to come on it? And I was like, sure. And then we met up in Dallas. So I do think, I love what you said about building relationship, because I think that makes all the difference. And I wouldn't be surprised if she and I do something together someday, years down the road. You never know.
Yeah, it does. It makes all the difference in the world, for sure. And it's one word: relationship. If you sum this whole hour up, that's what you have. Build relationships, for sure. And that's great, Michelle. Thank you.
And I think you do that by serving others too. I wanted to say that just because that was how I got my co-author opportunity. I like to run launch teams, and I offered to run hers, and she thought I was insane. And, you know, the publisher was so content with the sales, they asked me to be on the next book. So I think that's something a lot of times we want to be promoted by somebody. Sometimes it's a good idea to see how can we serve them first.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm vice president of Christian Authors Network, which is a group of professional authors who help each other market our stuff. And that's what we do. We all help each other to market our stuff. And so it's a really good opportunity to get out there and to connect with people. So if you're interested in that and you have a traditionally published book and another book, check us out, because it's a good way to market as well. We really do have to help each other, because this is a crazy world that is so inundated with stuff, good, bad, and the ugly. And we want to give the good, for sure. Jamie, you had something to say.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
Yeah, Jess, I was just thinking quickly on the email list thing. One thing that was kind of a no-brainer, but it took me a couple times to figure it out. I still been doing a lot of book clubs online, and that's been fun. It's, you know, I prefer in person, but hey, I'll take it, and I don't have to drive across town at night, so that's a good thing. But anyway, I realized that I needed to offer being the one that set up the Zoom. And then those folks provided me emails to send out with the links. And I asked them, of course, up front, you know, to please let your group know, can I use their emails to put them on my newsletter? And everyone agreed. And then, of course, once you meet with them and you speak and they're all lovely people, and they know that you're not some crazy person, then, you know, at the end of it, I just confirmed, you know, I put your, you know, email and thank you very much, because I was doing that kind of a reverse at the big, you know, on some book clubs, and having the host of the book club set up the Zoom. And then I would get off the book club and realize,
You didn't capture them.
Because I'm not, because
I've done that too.
always in, you know, in person book clubs, I would always pass around, you know, my computer or something, and people sign up. So that was kind of a no-brainer, but it did take, but I love that, because those are very authentic people on your list that want to continue to.
Yes, you created a relationship even with just.
Yeah, so I really, that's, you know, just was kind of a no-brainer when I had to figure out backward.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and then, you know, if there's something that logically makes sense, I have my, you know, as you know, my art studio and my author email all in one, because I used to manage both email lists. And so I merged everything. And then in my newsletter, I'm offering both of those things. So there may be someone that more has the art leaning or the book leaning, but ultimately they kind of get to know me as the full person. And that has helped the reach of my email list.
And simplified your life.
It really did. So if you have an area in your life that you happen to promote as well,
Yeah.
there's a junction for the two of those. I know it doesn't always work, but anyway. And then I've done some of the bigger like with Just Read publicity tours, and I did get a lot of email additions through that. But again, I don't know those people, and I don't know if I will be able to sustain them. Hopefully, but anyway, so a couple food for thought.
Those are all good ones. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So there's lots of ways that you can do it. And you'll find it as you journey. Talk to other authors and ask them, how did you do it? How did it work for you? Do you have any pointers? Do you have any ideas? Especially if you're in the same genre. They, like Jamie and Donna, both of them write historical fiction. And so I've gone to both of them and said, hey, yay, give me the ideas here. Because iron sharpens iron, and I need all the sharpening I can get. Yeah, for sure. Any other thoughts? Any other questions that you have for me that I didn't answer?
So for anybody who writes contemporary, my alter ego writes contemporary. Do you think that visiting the actual place where something is written is as important for contemporary writers as for historical writers?
Well, if your setting is kind of a character, I mean, mine are so deep. My setting is so deep that it's really a character in my story. So if it's a character, like my friend Denise, she writes about a house that's in Georgia or something like that. She needed to go there and to check it out and to smell it and to see it and to experience it. Yes, that would be important. If it's a simpler contemporary romance kind of thing where the couple is the main theme and the main characters, and the setting is not that important, not necessarily. That's what I would say about that. But yeah, it's always best to be able to, there's nothing like experiencing what you're writing about and smelling it and seeing it and walking it and meeting people there and all of that. No matter what. For sure.
Susan, I'm a little jealous. I grew up in Spain, lived there for 9 years, and we saw lots and lots of castles, and we were able to tour them, but I never got to stay in one. So I'm kind of jealous that you got to do that. When I saw on Facebook, were you showing recently that you had been to some of the castles? Yeah. And I was like, oh, I wish I could have done that.
I stayed at Singer Castle. It was so much fun. It was like it was after Devon's Dilemma came out. And it was like seeing her around the corner, what she was getting into. It was great. It was so cool. Yeah. And then when I wrote Reagan's Reward, I actually wrote 3 chapters of the story at Casablanca. So that was fun too. So
Nice.
yeah. Well, it's been fun chatting with you all, and I hope you got a little something out of it. And again, just build relationships. It's all about relationships. That's what Jesus did with his 12, with his 70, with his, and he's still working on it today. I guess he's the best model to go by, eh? Yeah.
Well, Susan, thank you so much. And, we think these times are constricting for for us. We can't go to church. We don't have our regular groups that we're meeting. We're not going to have a conference this year. All of those things could be looked at as limiting, but really it should help us sharpen our focus.
Mhm.
And I think the sharper our focus is, the wider our audience will be, and allows us to be used as God wants us to be used.
Yeah.
So thank you. Great things there. And I think we all have some good tips on that. So we have our groups. We have 3 groups that are meeting throughout the month. The next group this month is the Lakewood group. And I just put the link on that. It's January 26th. You don't have to be in Lakewood. Michelle, you can be in Dallas and come to our local group, and the more the merrier. And we have found that these groups have been thriving online, even though we can't meet. Jamie Mansfield is going to be speaking. She's going to be talking about book launches. So I've been to 2 of her book launches. One was quite the party, and the other was virtual, and they were both fabulous. So she's got some great ideas for all of us to share. So is there anything of a general nature that somebody would like to share? Perhaps you've been moved in one direction or another, or just some sort of word you want to give the group.
I think I would
wanna
just say that I'm grateful to y'all for having these, because I think the one thing we all need is the encouragement that comes from listening to others and the things that have worked for them, and then also just a chance. Writing can be, for me at least, being an extrovert, writing is a lonely business, and so I'm grateful for opportunities to just see other faces of people pursuing those same callings.
Mhm.
I was just going to say thank you so much, Ms. Mathis, for sharing your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's great. When you're home all day long and you're writing and you don't even see anybody for a day or two because it's just you and your computer and your puppy dog now. It's really nice to see faces and to hear voices and to be with like-minded people. So thank you. It's been great.
Awesome. I did want to share that we have Beatrice Bruto on the line too, everybody. Hi, Beatrice. she's
We
sneaking
love her.
in there. Thank you so much, Susan. You're wonderful. So much. It's such a blessing to hear from you and get these tips and inspiration for marketing. Hi, everybody. So Beatrice, did you have a word for the writers that you wanted to share before we hang up?
Oh, praise the Lord and God bless y'all this evening. I just want to say this. Susan, that was wonderful. That was really wonderful. That was much needed right now. I don't know about other writers, but once you get hit pretty hard on all sides and what have you, sometimes you have to start back over. And what you have given us this evening has really been helpful in helping us to get our minds back to where we're supposed to be as writers, because the job that God has given to us as writers is to just touch lives. That's all. Right. Just touch lives.
Amen.
And so thank you so much for that. And to everybody else, look, y'all keep writing, because there's a whole bunch of mess that's out there in the marketplace, okay, coming from writers that's not saved, sanctified, and filled with the Spirit of God. But y'all just keep writing, because God needs his writers in place. We're the scribes. We're the ones that take the words from God's heart and gives it to the people. And so I just want to encourage y'all this evening, get out there and just write the way God has said for you to write, because he's going to bless you. Okay. God is able to do exceeding abundantly above all we could ask or think, according to his power at work in us. And since we were created in his likeness and image, that part of us is that writer part of God. And so we're writing from his heart and his mind to the people of the world, because the people need these messages right now. So God bless y'all. This was just wonderful tonight.
Amen.
Well, woohoo! Preach it, Sister Beatrice. We're just,
well, it don't take much for me to preach. I'm just saying.
You know it don't, but praise the Lord. Amen.
All right. So we all need to be a soul force for this world. So let's just remember those words. That's what the world needs right now, is somebody that can reach souls. And blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are the writers, and may we go forth in blessing and to change the world. So thank you so much. Thanks all of you for dialing in tonight,
Yes, thank
and may
you.
God go with you.
Bye.
Bless everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. I like to do an after party sometimes. But David, this is Michael saying hi to Dave.
How you doing?
You. It's so good to I can hardly wait to meet you virtually, so, or in real. So
Yeah, looking forward to meeting you officially too.
yeah.
Got
so
a
good.
couple books, so he'll get them out in the next year, I guess.
Yeah, I'm working on stuff. Thanks to
Right on. Right on. All right. You got a motivator there at your arm. So
Thank you.